at MMA believe that evolving is not just about evolving businesses, but also evolving as marketeers and driving purposeful businesses. Hence, we are very glad to have with us today Miss Manisha Lath, an experienced professional with over 23 years of experience in marketing and advertising, strategy, innovation, digital channels, product management, and customer experience across FMCG, banking, and consumer tech. She has traveled that journey of a marketeer and beyond. And with her today we have Miss Sonali Krishna, a well-known Indian ace, a journalist and the editor 80 Now.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And after Cyrus, it's a tough act to follow, but we're going to try very hard. I'm going to pose some tough, insightful questions to her, and she promises not to mince her words. So we're hoping that this is going to be a very scandalous and controversial conversation. With that, Manisha, I have a brief, but I'm going to disregard it. So, we've been talking about winning marketing organizations. My first question to you is, globally and even in India, you see the relevance of marketing and the marketing function within organizations diminishing. There are several cases abroad with large multinationals where they've completely shelved the marketing function because they don't find it as relevant as it was earlier. So before we talk about winning marketing teams, where do you think, as a seasoned veteran marketer, where do you think marketing as a function is going wrong? How do you kind of delve in and regain that kind of respect it used to have? And somebody here mentioned about getting, the route to the boardroom. That's an essential question as well. There is no seat on the board for marketing. Where has the function gone wrong?
Sonali, that's a very good question, and I think a couple of things have happened over the last, a decade or two, which has driven this change. First is a general, change in the mix of industries that we see. So earlier, marketing jobs were really in FMCG, and there weren't any marketing jobs in BFSI, insurance, and consumer tech didn't exist, services didn't exist. But a lot of marketing jobs are now in these companies, right? In pharmaceutical, in consumer tech, etc. And these companies are actually not run by marketing. They are run either by ops, or they are run by like bankers, or they are run by R&D guys or tech people. So what happens is that willy-nilly marketing becomes like the support function rather than the function which was in the driver's seat. Traditionally, marketers worked with FMCG brands or really brands which had high and healthy profit margins. So when you're running a business which has a high profit margin, then obviously you can build the brand, and it's the brand that drives consumers towards the business. But a lot of the consumer tech companies, even finance, NBFCs, BFSI, they are very thin margin companies. They are basically ops companies. Sure. So they don't have the big money to spend on brands, and that's one of the reasons why marketing becomes a support function. Having said that, for big banks, and for big businesses, even the 2-3% margin that they make can actually give you decent marketing budgets. But because they're not marketing organizations, the marketing teams don't get guidance. They don't get training. They don't get competency building. And that's why I think the role of the CMO is really to step up and define a role for the team, a role for marketers. And it comes from basically knowing your stuff. And I think the problem now is that there's a general tendency to believe that marketing, to koi bhi kar sakta hai. What's the big deal between this design and that design, this poster and that poster? We can also decide isme kya badi baat hai. Sure. And the minute marketers don't talk marketing and they talk like a layman, they lose that power over the function. So I think that's really what we need to do. We need to up our game. We need to learn marketing. And we need to do real marketing and not some marketing ops, which is what we end up doing otherwise.
So just to take your point forward, I was taking a smoke break outside and I overheard a gentleman having a conversation on the phone, and he was telling, I don't know, his client or whoever, saying, oh, we are experts on Reels on Instagram. We are experts on stories on Facebook. We're experts in this, we're experts in that. Marketing has somewhat become tactical, so to speak, thanks to the explosion of social media. And while we have a lot of new buzzwords coming in, and the latest being brands getting onto the metaverse, unfortunately, nothing is sticking. So there's so much of messaging being thrust on us as consumers, but nothing is sticking. But the other day, there was somebody on the radio was humming a tune, and it seemed so familiar to me, and this was probably advertising when I was a kid, But I remember the tune, I thought about it for for 30 seconds and I got it. It was Hamdard Ka Tonic Sinkara. I don't know how many of you all have actually heard that. Or any such yesteryear tunes which still remain in terms of my brand recall. Today we're trying so much, marketing is positioning itself as being so nuanced, but nothing is actually converting. Social media experts say, oh, there's a lot of conversion on digital media because they actually use that to go and shop. What is your view? Do you think brand building along the way has completely been lost?
We are going through a phase, I feel, where there are too many products and services and not enough need for any of them, for many of them rather. And the reason we are able to fund and still run businesses with all these sort of useless products and services is because there's just so much money floating around in the system. Right. And there are people ready to back any product and any service. So I think it's a phase. And everybody's just throwing money at, what they call advertising, social media. People say, बस वो कुछ डाल के मेरा Facebook पे कुछ बना दो या Instagram पे मेरा कुछ बना दो, and that's really our tendency. But I think that phase, when the money gets squeezed out of the system, that will disappear. What we had traditionally was products and services which came out of deep-rooted consumer needs. Somebody had really understood that, हाँ ये किसी को चाहिए. ये नहीं कि if we talk about it and spend enough money on it, people will feel compelled to buy it.
But Manisha, in today's day and age, marketers claim, or brands claim, that they have big data, they have small data, they have bit-sized data, they have all types of data, right? This kind of data availability was never available, let's say, 2 decades ago. So today, marketers are actually fed a lot of research, a lot of data. So what is going wrong? Why is it lost in translation?
I feel it's lost in translation because while we have data, we don't have insight. And that's the difference between looking at a whole lot of data which can be fed to you, but actually going out there and doing first-hand research to really understand that why do people behave the way they do. See, data will tell you what people do. They will tell you that at 5 o'clock, 20% of your population has a samosa and a tea. But they'll never tell you why they have it at that time. And unless you try to understand the whys behind the whats, and understand the needs and the motivations of consumers, you really can't either design good products and services, and secondly, you definitely cannot make good communication, which will actually engage them and excite them. So what do you end up doing? You end up giving them promotions. You end up giving them cheap stuff, throwing stuff at them, and then the minute your company runs out of venture capital funding and you do an IPO, etc., and all that money gets squeezed out of the system, then the marketing teams get shelved because they never built a role for themselves while the going was good.
Sure. So why is this realization not dawned on the many brilliant marketers we know?
I don't know. I'm just wondering whether we really have that many brilliant marketers going around. Because, the kind of rigor that marketing teams would go through, like, I sort of probably grew up in that era when we would be put through a very rigorous marketing training program in a company like Unilever or Procter or, one of these big marketing giants. And we were taught like real marketing stuff. But when you go to some other industries, go to consumer tech, go to BFSI, they don't grow up thinking like that. That's why I don't think there are those kind of brilliant marketers that used to exist anymore.
So maybe, Monica, from modern marketing, it needs to go back to fundamental or traditional marketing and get our, basics back in place. But having said that, moving to, another subject, which is that of diversity, much talked about. My question to you is, great, there is diversity, organizations are making that a mandate. However, let's say there is a woman, or women make it to the top because of their own hard work and their merit. This diversity tick is like an insult, because even if you make it on your own merit, people will look at you as, okay, it's a diversity tick, right? When you interview, I've noticed this with journalists, or anyone actually addressing a woman CEO, Sucleen maybe, may have experienced it, is that just because you're a woman CEO or you're a woman on top, they will say, oh, so lovely to meet you, but you're a woman CEO. I mean, I think we'd like to be gender neutral. Man or woman, we've earned our stripes and we've got the position, gender agnostic. Do you see this increasingly as a problem? I agree that there should be diversity because at least we'll get the push.
Yeah.
But, don't take it all away from me because I'm a woman.
Yeah, so I think what's happening in my opinion is that, we seem to be moving forward, but obviously not at the pace that we would like to. And now, because there's such a huge pressure on diversity and it's talked about so much, almost every man in the room and in an organization has become a diversity champion. So what does that mean? That means that they say that, I'm going to hire women, I'm going to bring them in. But what they've still not come to terms with is that once the woman is hired, they actually almost expect that there will be that she'll be grateful for that job. Okay, and what they are not prepared for at all is that she actually might be competent. And then what they're absolutely not prepared for is that maybe she'll be more competent than you. Okay, so what are women facing today, in my opinion, is not a glass ceiling, it's a glass cliff. Because as long as there's gratitude for being hired and you feel like it's a quid pro quo that I'm the diversity king and I'm hiring people, they're all grateful to me, I hired them, it's all good. But then when you start feeling threatened, they are gently kicked off the edge. So I think that's change. But this change, Sonali, is actually a societal issue. It's not an issue of our corporate world. Our corporate world is a reflection of our society. Until such time that we don't raise better men, better boys, better nephews, better sons, better husbands, better brothers, it's going to keep reflecting in the workplace. Because if we've grown up telling boys that you're so special, that you will sit on a chair and 5 sisters will do aarti of yours and, do put bindi on you, they bring that same attitude to office and expect the same treatment there. And it doesn't happen like that.
Well, that's a long road ahead then in terms of actually
It is,
changing
but there are so
culture.
many women in the room here who are mothers, who are wives, who are sisters, right? Who will, it's incumbent upon us to fix the men in our homes because they are the ones who are going out to work, right? So let's try to fix that problem. Imagine if everybody was given, and I don't mean this in a bad way, gentlemen, please don't take it wrong, but I feel if you get that perspective at home, you will be able to better apply it at work. We cannot change the work environment only. We have to change the home environment as well.
So let's get on to another very tricky question. And this is my feedback from senior leaders I've spoken to in the industry. So as all of you know, we had this great Me Too movement in India, which absolutely fell off the highway because it just went all over the place and now it's forgotten. But the repercussions of the Me Too movement, especially in India, and I'm sure globally as well, but talking specifically of this country, many male leaders prefer recruiting male colleagues because it's less of a headache, right? There is no threat, there is no possible, accusation, right, wrong, or whatever the case might be. But the fallout of the Me Too movement is kind of reflecting in how the corporate world hires. Yes, we've got the diversity quotient in, but if you look at, they won't tell you this on the record because this is, this is not something this is not politically correct, but they'll all feel safer to hire or even promote a male just because life becomes easier,
I'm not so sure about that, Sonali, because if you see that, I just mentioned that actually most CEOs are trying to be diversity champions. So I think they want to definitely look more progressive. They want to definitely have like 10% women in leadership, etc. I think they're, trying to tick mark all of that. So I'm not sure about that. But yes, people do feel it's more convenient to hire men than to hire women. And I think our rules and our policies need to change to actually make them more equitable, which doesn't mean that you reduce maternity leave for a woman. It means you increase paternity leave for a man. Right? So when you do that, that's when things start becoming more gender balanced. And a man will take as much leave as a woman will. And some of those issues that actually pinch small companies specifically, that, because they are not able to really bear the burden of a 6-month maternity leave, kind of a paid leave. I think some of those things will start getting resolved if you apply paternity leave for men rather than cut down maternity leave for women.
Okay. Talking about, our gender, since we're talking about diversity, and if we just introspect on our own behavior, we're always saying that we should be given a fair chance. But if you do some self-introspection, I think we as women also need to kind of reflect on our own behavior. So, for instance, it is very noticeable, and you tell me your experience, that I see more and more women fall off a middle management much more, with much more gusto than, let's say, my generation or your generation. I think our generation had, I think, wanted to prove more hungry. Today, I see kids getting married, taking a sabbatical. And so if you get off the funnel so early in your career, it's difficult to then say, to have enough of a quorum on the top to move to that, a senior management or management. Do you see that happening?
There's always be a privileged set of, a privileged class of people who end up entering, corporate offices easier than others because they have access to good education, they live in big metros, etc., etc. But I don't think that this is resulting in a dearth of, women employees in the system because we have such a large country and, so many people to employ. So I think that stream is always there. And I think if the big metro privileged youngsters have a sense of entitlement and they don't want to work and they can afford to take off and go on a holiday and find themselves, etc., then that's their choice, really. That's their choice. But I think that there is still a steady stream of people that you can tap into. And I personally find people in tier 2 cities have a more, fire in their belly and more desire to prove and more desire to build something for themselves. But having said that, I think I know what you were referring to, which is more about sort of women also coming into the workplace thinking that the office owes them big time, or the other corporate owes them big time because of their gender. And I think that is not probably a very good attitude to have, because you should by and large not wear your gender to work on a daily basis. I think whether you're a man or a woman, frankly, neither should be doing that. And especially women, because we are such a minority and we're really trying to make our way in this world. I think every action of ours actually reflects on our entire community. So we have to be really careful whether how we conduct ourselves, whether we are misusing the company's policies, whether we are, not conducting ourselves. But I think, sometimes I feel that women will always say they can't travel domestically because they have families, etc. But I've hardly ever seen women turn down overseas travel.
So when you say domestic, you mean like these field visits?
Field visits, market visits, consumer visits. Many times we'll say, nahi, I can't do it because of whatever. But, if you say, there's an opportunity to go to New York for a conference, like I've never heard anybody say, I can't go. Right? So I think it's important for us to also be, be clear about how to conduct ourselves, because when you behave like that, you speak for all of us, and that sets us all back. So we are trying to change something here, and that's why all of us need to be very watchful of our own conduct.
Changing gears and moving to sustainability, right? Something that you're actually practicing in your life. But before I talk about what you're doing, I want to talk about companies talking about sustainability and sustainable practices for a winning mantra and all of that, right? You hear so much about it. I find it all quite fake because, you have so many companies talking about sustainable practices or purpose-led organizations, or we have a purpose, but it's so fake because it's just a PR stunt. It's a PR activity. They don't follow through. And if they do any small thing, they're coming to the press because they want their mileage. So actually, I don't think companies have a conscience. They're not being sustainable. They don't believe in it. And I think that's perfectly okay, but at least be honest about it. You're running a company, you're here for profits, and you want to run a successful business. I think that's a fair purpose to have. Why are you forcing purpose and this purpose-led organization in such an unauthentic manner?
You're right about that. I think right now at the moment it's more of lip service, something that people talk about and throw their, just talk about but don't do anything. But let me just first, before I answer your question, step back and just try to understand what is sustainability and what are we trying to do. Basically, the fact is that we are living on a finite planet, right? It has only that many resources. But all our systems are linear, which means that we are consuming resources and then finally they're ending in a heap of garbage. Whereas the Earth works on circular systems. Everything originates from the planet and finally decomposes into the planet. So the corporates in general haven't understood that. And I think if you don't understand the problem, you cannot solve it. So the first thing that you need to do is actually spend some time understanding how nature works. And that's really what I've been doing for the last 10 years with my permaculture project. And it's blown my mind to understand how this planet works. What's the carbon cycle? What is soil? How does it build? What's the hydrological cycle? Where does water come from? Where does it go? How is rain formed? If you don't understand any of those processes, then you don't care about respecting them, right?
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Let's say I was a brand owner Why do I care?
I'll tell you why you'll care.
Yeah.
Because you run a very profitable business today, but you have a 10-year runway for your profitable business to shut down. Okay? And this is going to be a genuine issue for all of us. This is no longer a sweet talking point. We are facing a future where water is going to be an issue, resources are going to be an issue, we are going to be having more violence and more distress in this world over very basic, simple things like food, water, and clean air. It's not something futuristic, and it's not the end of the world, actually. It's not going to be like it's going to all end. We are going to be very miserable for a very long time before it ends. So don't get, taken in by those Hollywood movies which show that everything ends one day and some handsome hero will come and save us. No. It's a prolonged suffering that mankind will go through before everything comes to an end. So what's important is for us to reimagine our business. Just the way we reimagined our business at the start of the Industrial Revolution, we all need to reimagine our businesses and make it more sustainable for ourselves, for the future of our business, because even our business will not run beyond a point.
But Manisha, such an evolved understanding of nature may come with few people such as yourselves, but for regular people who are leading their lives and quarter se quarter tak is their life, just chasing this short-term goal, there has to be some incentive that comes in for them to actually be serious about sustainability. Otherwise, it's okay, I have this purpose, some random agency will come up with this purpose, they'll have a few ads and
I'm not talking about ads and marketing at all, Sonali. I think the fundamental changes need to be made in our products and services. Brand managers, product managers, and R&D teams need to start re-looking at what is going into our products. You read the back of pack of a shampoo or a soap or a cream, it's toxins in and toxins out. You go to a factory and you say, okay, if these are the 10 ingredients going into my shampoo, can I dip my hand in each one of them? You can't. They're all toxic. You'll die if you do that, right? So how is it okay to make a shampoo out of these 10 toxic ingredients and sell them to people with some glamorous advertising? It's not okay. I recently read the back of pack of the shampoo I use, which said 90% ingredients of natural origin. That's what it said. It's like a brand which is completely natural. And it was just filled with chemicals. So because the cosmetic industry is not regulated by FDA, you're just putting all sorts of junk in it and selling it to people. Now these things are not practical because we are polluting our waterways, we are putting toxins into people. Even a newborn baby today carries toxins within its body. So these are real issues. They are not something that's going to you can just wish away. And this is 1950s chemistry, which we are still using. We need to shift to a much more greener chemistry than what we have. We have to employ different kind of people. We have to also look at where do our raw materials originate and where do our end-of-life products go. If we just go and see, brand managers here who are running pharmaceutical brands or personal product brands, have you gone and seen what happens to your pack after people have used it? How is it getting disposed? You're not collecting it. Where is it going? Right? How is it decomposing? So there are lots of things we need to do around packaging. We can actually reduce the water content in our products and make them more concentrated so that the pack sizes are reduced. And even the shipping costs are reduced. We can dehydrate our products. So there are many things that we can do to actually build smarter products for the future. It is just about having the will to do it and understanding the business need to do it. Not a compliance need, but a business need. Because you know what? Consumers are speaking up, employees are speaking up, shareholders are speaking up, activists and governments are going to start speaking up pretty soon. It's going to become an agenda for governments to be much greener. It's already happening in many countries.
Okay. I think we're out of time, but I have some time for questions. Anybody in the room who has a question?
I think most of the people are outside drinking tea.
Okay. Virginia, if you can pass her a mic.
Yeah. Sorry, I think there's no mic. Just speak loudly, Virginia. We'll hear you.
I'm very interested now that you've built over the last 10 years the farm, what are your plans for the future? How are you thinking about, the role that's going to play in terms of,
I'm very interested in, your plans for Ananda and how you're thinking about potentially commercializing this or scaling it. What are your plans for the future?
So basically what I've done the last 10 years, Virginia, is really trying to understand how nature works and what really happens there. The problem is there's usually a big divide between people like me, like my new avatar, and the corporate world, because they just don't talk to each other. Usually people reject the corporate world and say, that's the system, that's bad, I have nothing to do with it. Now this is my new enlightened life and I've seen things completely differently. But I think that'll be a waste of the 20 plus years that I've spent in the corporate world. So what I would like to do is really invite people like you to come and learn with me on how things work. Let's talk about your processes, let's talk about your products, let's talk about the things you make, and see how we can together innovate on making each of these much more sustainable and having a lesser impact on the planet than what they're having right now. So I think that's really what I want to do with the permaculture project I run. Invite corporates to come and learn through my eyes and through my experience, and maybe benefit from it as they build a sustainable future for themselves.
Anybody else? Okay. I think that's that, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thanks.
Thanks, Manisha.